Welcome in to this week's Lunch with the Coach episode. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Bob Shipley and Bryan Erwin, two former high school football coaches in the state of Texas, also spent some time in the college ranks. This episode is brought to you by our friend Laura Baker over at Keller Williams Realty. We'll talk a little bit more about Laura a little later. But coaches, Texas has to go to double overtime. I don't want to spend too much time on the Sun Devils, but I haven't spoken with you guys since that game. Bryan, what were your just immediate reactions and thoughts following that game?
Tale of two games. I thought we came out playing really well. Defensively, the first series, they moved the ball down the field a little bit, but they had some breaks, fourth down conversion, couple different breaks to continue that drive. So I thought we came out smoking on defense, playing really well, containing Scatterboo and their quarterback. We talked about this a few weeks back, and he scared the crap out of me. And this guy's legit. I mean, with his feet and his ability to make plays off schedule. I thought offensively, again, we got off to a hot start and played well. Played a great first half. I think the thing that sticks out and kind of sticks in your craw a little bit is the penalties. We championship ball clubs don't commit 10 penalties. And then the kicking woes. I thought special teams, we played fantastic. Just in general, from a special team standpoint, coverage, Silas Bolden's return, we punted the ball well, we covered well, but the field goals, the kicking issue that we've got right now is a concern, and it's a major concern. You're not going to win another game if you miss a couple field goals.
Yeah, Burt Auburn is now 6 of 14 from beyond 40 yards this year.
Yeah.
So it's a real issue. It's not just a right half, left hash issue anymore. It's spilled over. Bob, Coach Shipley, what do you think about that game and your thoughts overall on it?
Well, I tell you, hats off to Arizona State. They are a well-coached, scrappy team. And their head coach, I don't know him. I've never met him, but just from the outside looking in and reading on him, he seems to be a classy guy, and I just say hats off to them. I feel like that our defense just wore down after time, which is what you hope you do. That's like, what is it they used to say about like the wishbone, Bryan? They'd say, it's just like Novocaine, give it time, and it'll eventually work,
Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of what they, with their power game and stuff, and with Scatterbo, they're just going to keep pounding at you, and they eventually just kind of wore us down, and he is a stud. I mean, he just has that innate ability to – he's got quickness, he's got good hips, he's got great balance, he's got good hips. He's really hard. He swivels his hips a little bit. He's really hard to bring down, and he's very motivated. He's a competitor. I didn't like the way he handled himself, for example, in the first half when they didn't get the fourth down and he got up and shoved one of his linemen who was trying to help him up. That wasn't good. But he's a competitor. He was in the heat of the moment. But I feel like that offensively, it's the same old woes. The script plays, man, first two plays, boom, we're rolling. Punt return, boom. And then Sark just, in my mind, just continues to struggle to find his rhythm after that. He typically opens up, pretty sharp, but I just never felt like he ever really got that comfortable again for a while, until it mattered. And then, man, we get in overtime and he's on again when he has to be. Sark and Quinn, they're a lot alike, obviously, because they're joined at the hip, but it's a good indication of, when Sark's calling it in his groove, Quinn's good. When Sark's off and he's not in his groove, Quinn struggles, And I don't know if it's those plays, Bryan. You may know. I haven't watched it close enough to know if those plays where Quinn is successful and we're getting those big plays on those scripted. If he just basically has to read one guy, it's easy for him because he doesn't have to read a lot of people. It's a one-man route. We've got everything else is deception. It's all window dressing, trying to get this one guy open, and he's really good at that. But when he has to sit back there and start going through reads, I don't know. I don't blame Quinn, because Quinn is a winner. We've won. He's pulled us out of so many games, and he struggled during those games. But I'm not so sure it's, some of that's not related to just not being in a rhythm and not being in a groove. We can't continue. We're scrappy. We find ways to win but when you're playing against the likes of Ohio State, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot tougher. You have to be firing on all 8.
I think it also hinges on the run game. When, our run game's going, he just like any quarterback, it doesn't matter who you're talking about, Pat Mahomes or, whoever. I mean, the run game sets the quarterback up for being great. And our run game was non-existent the other day. And, that's what's very confusing for me, because one game we got a power run game, we look great, run the football, great schemes. The next game we're just getting stoned. I mean, there's just nothing there. And Wisner's the same guy, but there's no lanes in there. So I was disappointed in our run game. I felt like, okay, Quinn, the last 3 passes, look, Quinn won us the game, period. I mean, the good, the bad with Quinn, we know doesn't have the escapability. His escape stuff in the pocket's not great. But the throw on 4th and 13, the throw on the 2-point conversion, and the very first throw of second overtime, those 3 for 3 right there wins us the game. And so he showed out, but I still look back on it. In my honest opinion, not my heart, but my honest opinion, Arizona State had the best running back on the field. They had the best quarterback on the field. They had the best offensive line on the field. And we had the best receivers. But offensively, they were tough. Their offensive line executed, I thought, very, very well. So you talk about 3 of the 4 position groups, they're as good as anybody in the country.
That's interesting that you feel that way. They certainly weren't ranked that way, and they've had some issues, but I felt like what made them very difficult to defend is you have this guy that'll pound you, and then you can't deny that the quarterback's escapability was next level. And then also he had the speed to get downfield fast. I mean, 3rd and 15 in overtime, and he gets a first down running the ball. I mean, give me a break, right? I mean, we thought, okay, we're going to hold him to a field goal here in overtime. No, 3rd and 15, a scramble.
Yeah.
I mean, for a first down, and it was right up the middle. And it wasn't, he made Anthony Hill miss.
Yeah.
That play. So they played well. Let me ask you this, though. You're talking about that game. Something I noticed in the second half, in the fourth quarter in particular, Quinn in the last 5 minutes of the game and into overtime finished 11 of 14 for $160 and 2 touchdowns. Okay. Sark started going over the middle more during that time. A couple to Gunnar Helm, actually 3 to Gunnar Helm, right? 1 to Ryan Wingo up on a slant of some sort. You had the Matthew Golden touchdown. Is Sark keeping it out in the middle for any particular reason during the middle of a game? Because he, other than the deep ball, he doesn't really hit the middle of the field much during the middle of a game. He didn't try to get Arizona State, at least. Maybe Arizona State was trying to keep him away from that or something. I mean, what's the idea there? And is that something perhaps Texas could execute against an Ohio State team?
I think you would have to go back and break down the coverage. I'm sure there's correlation there. You know, yeah. I'm sure they were taking away the middle. I'm assuming. I don't know that. I mean, he's one of the best play callers in the country, and I just trying to give him credit, thinking that I would like to go back and rewatch that and chart that and see, you know, if it was something secondary wise they were doing or whatever that kept us from doing that, because I haven't thought about that, but I think that's exactly right. I mean, I think you're right on, Bobby. I would like to research that a little bit. Good point.
Yeah. What do you think, Bryan?
I think you've got a valid point there, but I would also agree with Bob that every play and every play's design versus the multitude of coverages that we see, you know, the primary place may be to go across the middle, but based on what we see, you know, if they're playing that flyover defense, they close the middle of the field and, you know, it's not there, then we got to go somewhere else with it. But, you know, even what was it, the first pass of the game, we busted for, you know, big yardage, and that was an RPO slant to Golden, I believe, and then, you know, we hit the big one, DeAndre Moore, right after that.
Did we ever come back to that RPO?
I don't think so.
I don't think I don't understand that.
I don't either. Bob, we're old high school football coaches, man. We're gonna run it till they stop it.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
And for some reason, these guys in the college and NFL ranks, their playlist looks like this book I've got sitting there in front of me, and they got to have reading eyeglasses to read all those plays. And sometimes just go back and keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, I think that's good. I have a question. Now, let's look forward a little bit now to Ohio State. Does how Texas finish that game against Arizona State give them maybe some confidence or momentum even going into this? Because there could be a thought that maybe Texas might have been looking a little ahead to Ohio State and past Arizona State. I know people don't want to say that, but it's possible. Y'all have seen that before. Is it something that now Texas can just let it all hang out a little bit against Arizona State?
Man, I love where we're sitting, Bobby. I love it because for two reasons. What you just mentioned, how we finished that game on a high note. And number two, we are truly an underdog, a full-blown, full-fledged underdog for the first time this year. We're going into this week every single day, and those coaches are wearing our guys out about how we don't have a chance. We're playing the best team in the country. Ohio State right now is the hottest team in the country. They're the most physical team in the country. They got the best wide receiver in the country. They got the best offense in the country, best defense. And so the full attention of our players as underdogs and walking in with a true chip on their shoulder, I think it's going to present itself on Friday. It's going to take that. I mean, we're going to play our best football game to beat these guys on Friday. But I love where we're sitting because of how we finished and because of the fact that now everybody's talking about Ohio State and how great they are and how we might as well go ahead and crown them champions. And this is 4 or 5 weeks after Michigan beat their butt. And so that's how things have to catapult in the playoffs. We've talked about this many times. When you get in the playoffs, the teams that catapult themselves, the way Ohio State's done it and come out and played physical and played clean, those are the teams that win the championships. The question is, are we going to catapult ourselves this week by playing clean with penalties, playing clean with the turnover game, and playing exceptionally well on special teams in all phases?
What about you, Bob? What do you think?
Great. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's a great point. I actually think we're in a better situation now than if we would have blown out Arizona State.
Yep.
We'd have won by 21 points. I do think there was a letdown. I don't think there was a letdown before the game. I think we were ready to play. But I think we jumped up early like that, and Scatterbo wasn't having much luck. And I think we just kind of had a yeah, man, we are what we thought we were. Wow, we're fixing it, you know.
Great.
And I think there could have been a letdown, but we can certainly use that to our advantage. I thought the same thing all week, Bryan. I've seen the line, and I'm going, oh, my gosh, this is perfect. We don't do well when we're number one. We don't. We just don't. For some reason, I don't know if we just aren't mature enough to handle it yet or whatever. I think we're going to get there. I hope we better if we're going to be a blue blood. But going to this game, as Bryan said, with a chip on your shoulder is an advantage for us, I think. And I think there's, Ohio State's going to come in thinking they're going to roll us. And I mean, and they may roll us. I can't imagine that. But to me, the key to this game, Bobby, is simple. Bryan's already talked about. We have to be able to run the ball. We can't keep going deep into the playoffs without a running game. It's never happened in the history of football that I know of. And it's not gonna happen this year for the first time. The team that wins is a team that's going to be able to run the ball. And if we can't do that, it's going to take a miracle. A miracle.
Yeah, and stop the run.
Exactly.
You give Will Howard that Will Howard doesn't need any help with Jeremiah Smith. The run game needs to be limited. All right, I want to say thank you real quick. I've got some more questions for you guys here on this Lunch with the Coach. I want to say thank you to Laura Baker at Keller Williams Realty. If you're thinking about moving to, from, or within the Austin area and want a first-rate, long-time Austinite to be your realtor, make sure you reach out to Laura. She knows everything about the Austin real estate market. 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505, or Laura at andyallenteam.com. And she's not just a fly-by-night Texas fan. She's got many decades as a Longhorn fan. We've talked about it quite a bit here with her before. All right, guys, I got a question for you. You mentioned special teams, Bryan and Bob. Bert Auburn, do you make the move this late in the game to another kicker? I mean, you're going into week 16 or game 16. You're going to change your kicker in week 16? Have y'all ever done that? Is that just unheard of? But do you have to do it?
Let's pull up lunch with the coach the week before the Clemson game. And I said do it then. Yes, you have to. I'm not going down with that. The proof's in the pudding. I'm not going down with this guy. I'm not. I mean, you got to try. You got to try something else, in my opinion. May not necessarily be right on this, but I'm not going down like this. You've got to make your field goals. I watched teams all weekend long, and I made a comment to my brother and people I was watching. I said, the kid kicks it, and he kicks it, and he booms it, and it goes straight. And it never leaves the middle of the uprights. And then the next guy on the next team, whether we're watching Penn State, Notre Dame, or, whoever it is, not Penn State, Notre Dame, but who am I thinking of?
Notre Dame, Georgia, maybe?
Notre Dame, Georgia. Both kickers, man, are just nailing that thing. And you got to have the kicker that can knock it through there as a championship team. So, yeah, I would do it. There's no doubt about my mind.
Bob, you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think you put a new kicker on a short leash, but you give him a try early. And if he bangs it, then that could be the best thing for Bert going into the game, not feeling all the pressure on him. And then if the other guy, bombs, then, maybe Bert is not worried as much. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how good our backup kicker is. Do y'all?
Well, he was a highly ranked coming out of high school, but that doesn't matter. I mean, y'all know that. I mean, he actually is our kickoff specialist, Will Stone, and he has been taking some first-team reps this week.
Good.
But, I think that the problem I have, and I talked to a former Texas kicker last week, actually, and he said, look, he's pulling his left shoulder out. He's not keeping his head down, and then he's getting in his head, so he's overcompensating. He said, look, it's a mess. Maybe even the holder's not tilting the ball enough, in his opinion, so it's dragging left more.
But here's the deal, and I will go on the flip side, because I'm not sitting there watching Will Stone kick in practice either. So if it's close, here's what I'm saying. If it's close, you got to go with Will Stone. If it's close. It may not be close, because every single kick in practice gets charted. I did that for a whole year as a special teams GA. Every single kick, whether you're with the team or whether you're off by yourself, you chart every single one of them. You got little symbols on where it missed, how it missed, on the right side, left side, short, where they hooked it, where they cut it. You chart every single kick. And so if Will Stone's not in the same universe as Bert in practice, no, you don't make the change. But if it's close, you got to make the change.
Yeah. Let me ask you.
It's kind of like when somebody tells you or shows you who they are, believe them the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been in pressure situations and had chances and second chances to win the game. And yeah.
Right. Second chances, right. That's Georgia missed 2. And then against Arizona State, he missed 2 in the fourth quarter. Obviously. I will say this, Bryan, the special teams, even though they scored on that Silas Bolden return, another fake gets them. Is it time to just go punt safe and make that the call, even though you scored a touchdown on Silas Bolden? Or what are your thoughts on that? Because I'm a little leery right now about, and then they had the running into the kicker too. I'm a little leery about punt return even right now. Thought I was worried about punt coverage, but what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are exactly what you're saying. I love getting the return. I mean, we're throwing babies in there and popcorn in there and everything else when we get the return. But how often does that happen? And, my philosophy was always, I just want the ball. I just want the ball. I don't want to return. I don't want to try to block it because we weren't able to. They can practice it more in Texas, but we weren't able to practice enough to be, great at it, getting that block point, taking it off the foot. And even Texas, with Mo Blackwell coming scot-free that first time, he's scot-free. He just didn't take it off the foot. But the goal to me is I want the football. So how do we get the football? Let them punt it. Let's play safe punt. I'll fair catch it. I've done that many times where I had to put a quarterback back there at punt returner because he was the only guy on the team to catch the ball. And so, hey, go back there, catch the punt, give me a fair catch signal, and we'll take it right there because I just want the ball. I don't want to return because 90% of the returns end up in a 10-yard block in the back anyway. So you end up losing yardage on punt returns. And then when you go after the block, how many times do you run into the punter, rough the punter, things like that? So, yes, Bobby, that is my philosophy, but that's obviously not Texas's. And I have to also respect what we do because we are aggressive in the punt block, punt return team. And with that, I think it puts a lot of pressure on the opponent. So I don't want to be too critical there because I think we're really, really good at putting pressure on our opponent. I never was that good at it. And my players never were that good at it. So that wasn't my philosophy. I just wanted the football. Maybe we go into this one, just say, give us the football and let's start running it. Let's start throwing it, see if we score points that way.
Yeah, you don't want, one thing you don't want to do is extend drives for Ohio State.
No.
And that goes towards what I want to ask y'all next. Final kind of topic of discussion. Recipe for success for Texas. Outside of running the ball, y'all mentioned that. What are some of the other things you want to see? Bob, I'll start with you.
Well, I say it every week. Sark's got to be on his A game. He's got to go into this game and not feel the pressure. I'm wondering if, I cannot figure it out. I just cannot figure it out. Like Bryan and I were talking earlier, we see a successful play and we won't see it again for a couple of games, and I just run the same play to the other side, just flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. I mean, you're probably going to get the same results or at least you have a chance to, but I think it just comes down, take away us being able to run the ball, take away us stopping their run. Yeah, it's going to come down to which quarterback and which offensive line are protecting and being successful throwing the ball down the field. And that's what it's going to – now, how many times have we played Will Howard and beat him? 4 times, okay? I hope we're not resting on that because he's surrounded by a group of NFL players right now. He wasn't necessarily surrounded by those guys at Kansas State, so – but I think it's going to come down to quarterbacks and special teams. Which quarterback's in the groove, which play caller is in the best groove, because athlete to athlete, it's a pretty evenly matched game. They've got probably the best receiver in the nation, arguably. We've got the best DB in the nation. We've got they've got great players all over the field. So do we. So it's going to come down to the quarterback, in my opinion, and the offensive line.
What do you think, Bryan? What's a recipe for success for Texas?
I think simply is easy to say, but simply we've got to cut the penalties down to a minimum, much like the Clemson game, down to that 1 or 2 range, and the penalties we've got to be clean, turnovers we've got to be clean, and we need to be able to run the football. I'm not saying we can't win the game without running the football. I totally 100,000% agree with Bob. It's hard to find a team ever in the history of the game of football that wins this time of year, being a finesse team. Look at Oregon. Oregon got their socks blown off. They're a finesse team. No matter how you slice it, they're a finesse team. Finesse teams do not win this time of year. Physical football teams that run the ball, that stop the run, that don't turn it over, that execute with a low penalty percentage and margin, those are the teams that win, and that's what we've got to do. And then the last thing I would say, it comes down to the intangibles, the stuff we can't measure. We've got to want to win this football game and fight to win this football game more than Ohio State. It's got to mean more. Just because we're here doesn't mean a dang thing. I remember going to my first state championship game. I was almost like, man, I'm so happy to be here. This is awesome. This is exciting, man. This is just incredible. We're happy to be here. And I'll never forget my wife telling me one day in the kitchen, I came on, she said, you got one chance. You're here, go win it. You're in this position, you got to go win it. We put ourselves in this position to go reach the finals. We've got to be the toughest football team on the field. And that's what it comes down to. Our grit, our determination, our toughness, our teamwork, our unity, our love for each other, it's got to be greater than Ohio State's. Because if it's not, you take all those other – because there's just too many variables involved. Can our corners match up against the receivers? Are we going to stop the run? Are they going to stop the run? Is our quarterback going to play good? Is their quarterback going to play good? Are we going to turn it over a couple times? Are they going to turn it over a couple times? We're going to commit penalties. At the end of the day, it comes down to be the toughest team on the field and the team that wants to win the most and the most unified team. Got it.
I think that's going to do it, guys, for this afternoon. I appreciate y'all's time very much, Coach Bryan Erwin and Coach Bob Shipley, former Texas high school coaches. Played in a couple championship games, won a couple as well. I appreciate you guys very, very much joining us each and every week during the season. Also appreciate our sponsor. That's Laura Baker at Keller Williams Realty. They're in the Austin area. Reach out to us, 512-784-0505, 512-784-0505, or Laura at andyallenteam.com. She can help you out anywhere in the greater Austin area. 3 days away from the Longhorns and the Ohio State Buckeyes teeing it up in Jerry World AT&T Stadium. For Bryan and Bob, I'm Bobby Burton. Thanks for watching. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.